This is The Final Word. It's brought to you by Maurice Blackburn, the number one plaintiff law firm in Australia. It is Season 18, Episode 32 with Jeff Lemon and Adam Collins. And if you are hearing this and you're really paying attention, you might say, wasn't it Season 18, Episode 32 last week? It was, that's what we said, but we were wrong. That was actually episode 31. We've miscounted for about 5 weeks running. So that is going to confuse about 3 people who actually pay attention to these things. But we're back. It is definitely episode 32. This time, Adam is back at the Oval where a game is playing out between Surrey and another team who I've temporarily forgotten that is important. Is it Nottingham? It might be. It might be Nottingham. There we go. I've got the nod. And we are, well, we're probably both a bit fuzzy because we were up half the night on the phone going through the last proofs of the Storytime book, which is going to be going to print sometime pretty soon to come out before the end of the year. So that required, sometimes you have to pull a half all-nighter just to make sure all the full stops are in the right spot and the commas are correctly distributed. But we're going to make a show anyway. Hello, Adam.
Hello. Yeah, I'm knackered. I ended up getting 4.5 hours sleep. But that's okay. It was, I think the last time I had a 3-hour conversation with someone at whatever time we started talking last night was when Daniel and I were calling the shots back in 2020. And we used to do that on the phone, not on WhatsApp. And I didn't realize that I had some antiquated phone plan where you still got not charged by minutes necessarily, but like at a certain point, you started getting charged per the minute or whatever. And 3 episodes into making it, I had a 600 quid phone bill. I'm like, oh no. I managed to negotiate it basically off entirely and by re-signing and those types of things. But yeah, it was reminiscent of that as we went through every last page of the book, which is almost put to bed. And it's a great piece of work. So it'll be out there on the show. I think we're releasing it in the last week of November is the current plan, which is pretty standard for Christmas sales. And it'll be the book that you want to buy, your cricket-loving uncle or your actually, you know what? Speaking of cricket publishing, when I was a little boy, I read all the Glory Gardens Cricket Club books. Of course I did. And I told Winnie about this the other day when she and I were finishing our book. Yes, that's right. Winnie and I have written a book. That more on that maybe next year. And she wanted to get it as well. So last night I read Winnie the first chapter of the first Glory Cup book, which is Glory in the Cup, which is when they start when Hooker and co start the team as a bunch of 10-year-olds on their estate, and Winnie loved it. So that will be hopefully a big part of her life, like it was my childhood. Although she's a few years younger than me when I read them, but she was straight into it. So. And yet, you're right about being here at the Oval, where I'm watching a cracking game of cricket. Surrey rolled them for 231 yesterday, and then Notts today, they conceded, I think it was 58 runs for the second wicket with a night watchman in. So it was 101 for
Blaze.
Yeah. Thankfully not in the men's county championship. Thankfully we retained some degree of dignity with calling them what they actually are, Nottinghamshire County Cricket Club. And then they took 9 for 72 to bowl out Surrey for 160 or whatever it worked out to be, 170, something like that. And all the... And it's title on the line stuff, right? So if Notts win here, Surrey will need to win and have Notts lose next week. So it's all, It's that time of year for those who love 4-day cricket. And we'll talk more about the championship in a little bit, but that's where I am as Notts have started their second innings and Dan Worrell's already picked up a wicket, bowled Ben Slater. So this won't date well, but that's where that places us literally where I am right now. The score on the board at 2:30 on the second afternoon.
In a time, in a place. We've got a lot to get through on the show today. Domestic cricket has started in Australia in the 50-over format, which is weird. We'll come to that. Australia A have started playing their game against India. We've got some other bits of news coming through from ECB releases, I suppose, interviews. Brendon McCullum doing the media rounds ahead of the Ashes, other bits and pieces coming through from England as well. But let's start with the story that's always the biggest story in the cricket world when it happens. India and Pakistan, they played their T20, their Asia Cup T20. India won it easily, as you would expect, because the Pakistan Cricket Board is a busted organisation in the present moment. And I don't think anyone was really expecting Pakistan to compete at the moment, but all of that was rather to the side of just how ugly the symbolism around it was, with the Indian team having decided ahead of time to refuse to shake hands with the Pakistan team after the game. The captains also didn't shake hands at the toss. Pakistan are saying that was because the match referee had been told to tell them not to do it. I know it's just symbolism. I know it's just niceties and handshakes and all the rest of it in a fraught and difficult political situation. But there are some basics that you rely on with a game of sport, which is that the game of sport has to happen. It doesn't happen in a vacuum, but there is a decency to it, and there has always been with these India-Pakistan games up until this point. Particularly, I think it was Virat Kohli's influence while he was the most prominent player in that team that he made sure that as cricketers, he dealt with Pakistan players as cricketers and they met each other as fellows on the field. This is the first time that the off-field politics have taken a really prominent part, with Surya Kumar Yadav captaining that side and saying it was agreed between the BCCI, the government and the team, which is just an insane thing to think of in the first place, before the game, that they would refuse to go and shake hands with the Pakistan players. It's a horribly ugly situation to have on a cricket field.
Yeah, it's quite telling that, like it's saying the quiet bit out loud, isn't it, about the government and the BCCI and the team all being so interwoven, and everybody knows that, and we price it into all of our thinking and all of our discussions, but so explicit as that. And it's like Surya Kumar Yadav was really fired up when talking about this as well. He wasn't talking about it in sorrow. He was talking about it in almost anger. And I just want to say at the start of all of this that I appreciate the complexity. We appreciate the complexity. Jeff and I, have spoken about this so many times, about the relationship with India and Pakistan off the field, and how it would be naive for us to opine effusively on matters that relate to their political situation. However, what you said then, Jeff's what I thought of. When Kohli was captain, they found a way. When Kohli was captain, and it's not just Virat Kohli, but that generation of cricketers, even when MS Dhoni had the Indian team going out wearing, remember the camouflage caps they wore?
Hats, yeah.
And the camouflage gloves that he wore at one stage. But yeah, after what happened in April this year, and again, not to undermine that in the slightest, but it's like those conventions have gone out the window, at least in the short term. And yeah, we know that the situation is as fraught between the nations at the moment as it has been in a long time. So that increases the probability of moments like this, but it doesn't make it any less difficult to watch or weird to see when you consider how they've found a way to chart this course before in a way that we never would have seen them not shake hands or anything like that. No. Oftentimes they've exchanged shirts, and we've seen, talking like they're old mates, because in some instances they are old friends. They have played so much cricket against each other, or been in each other's presence so often that they have that kinship, that I don't know whether it's friendship's too strong a word to put on it, but there's a mutual respect there amongst the cricketers who take the field. So this is where that jarred. And again, it's a stark and clear and obvious reminder that the politics of the Indian government, specifically the Indian government as is elected at the moment, has a direct effect on what we actually see on the cricket field, and indeed the politics and the involvement of many of the actors that we've spoken about many, many times, sadly, too often.
Yep. Yeah, it's a much shorter pipeline than it ever was from government to the team. They're effectively all parts of the same organisation, with the BCCI being run as an arm of government as it is. I suppose we talk about things like this, and some people will say to us, well, what the fuck would you guys know? You're not from here. You don't get this. You don't have to be from a country to understand how international relations and how internal politics work. You've worked in politics. I've trained as a historian. We've got some idea about how these things work across different theatres, across different nations. And you're talking more broadly than this situation about nationalism, about patriotism being wielded as a political weapon, and about conflict happening between arms of government or arms of the military doesn't mean that conflict is happening between every single person in one country and every single person in another country. And historically, the teams have been able to make that separation, that we're the cricketers, we're here to play the other cricketers. If the teams are going to play each other, and they've got the government okay to play in multi-team tournaments but not to play bilaterally, so for whatever reason that distinction's been made, even though in the recent Legends League game the Indian team did refuse to play the Pakistan team. If they've made that decision to play in these tournaments, then surely you have to abide by the conventions of the tournaments, and one of those conventions is showing enough respect to your opposition. The Pakistan team were not appraised of this beforehand. They weren't told that that India wouldn't show up and do the ritual of shaking hands after the game. They were out there on the field waiting for it to happen, and it didn't happen, which is just another piece of rudeness in itself. This stuff doesn't need to happen because there is a much bigger and more complicated political conflict happening off the field. That's not happening between every Indian and every Pakistani. That's happening between arms of government and armed forces and irregular armed forces. And look, the whole thing is a schmozzle, that entire situation, and has been for decades. But to make the cricketers start to act it out, at that point, you shouldn't be playing. And if you've got a team showing up, saying ahead of time, presumably telling the match referee that they're not going to be abiding by those conventions at the toss and so on, well, you should forfeit the game. You shouldn't be allowed to play that game if you're not willing to show the basic courtesy to the opposition as 11 other cricketers that you're coming up against.
And when you consider it's a tournament that's constructed purely so that India can play Pakistan, like you made the point of why is this happening in the first instance? It's why has it been sanctioned rather? Well, obviously because there's an enormous amount of money to be made when India play Pakistan. And over time, there have been efforts to make sure those fixtures happen as often as possible within multilateral tournaments. So why India and Pakistan in the same group in every single tournament they play in, because of the commercial reality of how much money that can be, or what yield can be taken from those fixtures. So they've played once. India won. Who cares? I mean, it's a tournament that no one else is paying attention to. It's just an exercise in having them play again for exactly the same reason that they played in the group stage, and exactly the same reason why this wasn't forfeited and why they're all in Dubai in the first place, so they can them, and by them I mean administrators. And you want to do one more link in the chain, government, BCCI, Indian team. Well, you work back the other way, ICC, and who ultimately decides how the game is governed. That's clearly an extension of the governing party in India as well, and anyone who denies that's not paying attention. And it doesn't matter how angry people get when trying to defend the status quo, it is the status quo. And we all know that, and I think sometimes the pussyfooting around about calling it for what it is, it's to the detriment of the game, and this is but one small example of where the game is lesser for the internals, and especially the politics and the hyper nationalism that comes out of India. And that's not to say that Pakistan haven't, as a nation, played their role in what's turned out this year between the countries. That's not the point. It's the cricket piece of this. Pakistan are another bare bum in the shower.
If you're going to play, do it properly.
But Pakistan
either do it properly or don't play.
Just to finish the point, Pakistan are another bare bum in the shower. India are not. The power disparity is profound between those nations in the way that our game is governed, and that's why the scrutiny falls on India when it comes to cricket and not to both nations, as it would be if you're talking about foreign relations.
Yep. The Australian season has begun, which is weird. Normally we would change final word seasons at this point, but I think if it were a Shield game, I think I'd do it. But it's a 50-over comp that's starting before the footy preliminary finals. This is... It feels weird. It feels weird. I know that
it's a no for
they've
me.
been pretty close in years past, but not quite this early, I don't think.
Well, it used to be, unless I'm missing something, I think we found the sweet spot when the one-day comp started the day after the grand final.
Yeah.
So at least there was...
1st of October kind of energy.
Exactly. Like at least there was a ceremonial handing over of the baton from season to season. But any pretense has gone out the window. And look, to be fair, football does the same thing, because we saw the Sheffield Shield final this year being played in round 2 or round 3 of the footy, because footy starts earlier and earlier. So I'm not blaming cricket for making these scheduling decisions, but still it does jar that on the 16th of September, we're starting a competition. Pete Lawler was there covering the New South Wales Tasmania game, and he counted 206 people at the prison to watch that. And that's fine. Like there's probably not more than 206 rocking up to a domestic one-day game a lot of the time, and how many people go is not a reflection of how much interest there are in these competitions or how important they are. But yeah, on the way through, at least give us a couple more weeks of footy finals before the cricket season starts in that traditional sense, or find another way through with the time that exists later in the year. In terms of the actual cricket of interest for us anyway, that Glenn Maxwell's playing for Victoria, which is quite funny given he's retired from one-day cricket exclusively on the final word. Not really, but, he did the interview with us in the middle of the year. So Maxie playing there, that's great. They've got their first Dean Jones Cup game tomorrow, I think it is. But the game that did take place at Silverwater, the first of a couple of interesting innings that we need to talk about in Claxon Ashes selection chat. Claxon.
Mm-hmm.
Kurtis Patterson, Jeff, talk us through it.
Turned up, KP. Nobody else made many runs either for New South Wales. There were a couple of middling scores, but basically he opened and he put on most of the runs that they made. Low scoring game, 230 odd, but good to do that with George Bailey watching, the selection boss. Just to remind him, the helicopter might be taking off from Silverwater with Kurtis Patterson on board, and it might be landing at Perth Stadium. Probably not. If it's landing anywhere, it'll probably be landing in like the fourth test if they've lost a couple, something like that. That's the only way I'd see this panning out. But who knows? Sheffield Shield rounds to come. And then it turned into a belter of a game, actually. Tasmania chased it 8 wickets down, I think, by the time they got there. Brad Hope, we've talked a lot about hope. Hope is a dangerous thing, but, or is hope sometimes the best of things? Hope and Tassie, they go together. Brad Hope made 49 not out, batting down at number 8 in a century partnership with Matt Kuhneman at 10 and got them home in that low-scoring game late in the innings. So Tassie got the win, but Kurtis Patterson got the ton.
So, well, let's deal with Kurtis Patterson first. He looked so good when he played out here behind me earlier in the season. So he's got a bit of red ball under his belt from the winter. I think for him it'll come down to how well he starts the Shield season, whether he can actually truly push into contention. Remembering
3 Shield tons in 3 rounds. Let's have it. Let's make it happen.
But what are we really saying here, right? Like, what position could Kurtis Patterson credibly push for?
All of them.
It's the open. It's the open spot.
What does he want?
It's the opener spot, fundamentally.
True.
He's going to have to be, because there is no spot. There is no, there's no way they're going to jettison both Labuschagne and Green. I know Labuschagne's not in 11, but remember, and well, in saying that, to immediately contradict what I've just said, speaking of helicopters, Bo Webster, he missed out here,
Golden
captain
Duck.
of Tassie, Golden Duck. There is probably a world where Webster doesn't make, I think it'd be scandalous if Webster found himself squeezed out. I get what might happen if Green's bowling and they want to shuffle Green back to number 6. You and I have spoken about
Green's
this
6.
recently.
If Jay Weatherall makes a stack of runs and opens, and then there's a vacancy at 3, could be a Kurtis Patterson. Oh, there we go. I'll just
Kurtis Patterson and Jay Weatherall, former South Australian Premier, comes out and makes 300s at the start of the year. Great player. Then,
I noticed in your show notes a few weeks ago you'd typed him in as Jay Weatherall, just like some sort of muscle memory. When referring to Weatherall.
He does love cricket. Well, they all do in South Australia. Why wouldn't they? They have that beautiful. I think we've both been in the president's box there, Jeff, at different points. Where usually the premier will be swanning about, whoever the premier is at any given time, especially at the moment, being a massive sports fan. I digress. But yeah, Kurtis Patterson. You could see a world where it happens. He's going to have some competition. Let's not forget that Marcus Harris averaged 60 in the county championship this year. Let's not forget the contribution that Cameron Bancroft's made across a full season here. Let's not get too much shiny new toy syndrome here when there are openers. I just heard a roar which suggests there's a second wicket here, and there is 2 for 29. Interesting game going on here. Blockbuster, first versus second. But yeah, I'd be reluctant to fall into the trap of thinking that there aren't credible specialist openers rather than batters that we all wouldn't mind seeing get another opportunity, such as Patterson, who has obviously opened in the past, but as a rule, he's not been in that role. So we've had that conversation a number of times. So have other openers, by the way, where they're like, well, don't discount the degree of specialisation that's involved in becoming a top-class opener. So I think that's all to play out. But, if there is one
flip
spot...
side to that, if I can argue against that, we have 8 weeks before the first few days leading up, before we're going to have a very likely squad in 11. We have 8 weeks, and we can pick 36 players in those 8 weeks. We can pick everybody in the country one way or another. We have the time. We have the whiteboard. We have the red strings to tie between everything. This is our time to shine. We can do whatever we want. We can play with every toy in the toy chest. We can leave them all scattered all over the floor. Everybody's playing the Ashes right now. Liam Scott's playing the Ashes. Sam Konstas is coming back.
The audacity of Brad Hope's going to come in and make it unlikely.
Brad Hope's batting 8 in the Ashes. Why not? Like,
You know who? You
why
know
not?
who might?
Let us
You know who
live.
still might? I listened to something Baz did overnight, and Baz made an interesting point. He goes, "Don't forget that Sam Konstas still is the incumbent opener." I'm like, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's right, Sam Konstas." I wouldn't pick him, but
No.
I mean, I wouldn't pick him on a seeming. You know, there's been a lot of effort to contextualise what happened in the Caribbean. Greg Shipper during the week. Citing Usman Khawaja during the week, saying like these pitches in the Caribbean were bloody hard, and obviously they were. We were both there. It was an extraordinarily high degree of difficulty
No one
for
made any
top water
runs.
players. Nobody made any runs.
Nobody made any runs.
But
we know that.
You don't. But I reckon there's an ability to divorce the nobody made any runs thing from the watching Sam Konstas bat thing, and be able to form a view based on what we saw with our own eyes. Then the last time we played Test cricket.
Yes.
However,
there's not making any runs,
A,
and there's how did you not make any runs?
That's
and
it.
How did you look when you didn't make any runs? And
Well,
there was a lot more to Konstas than reading the score sheet, and also 50 runs in 6 innings or whatever is, you know, it's a very particular way of not making any runs.
Slam and Sammy Konstas, first unofficial Test Australia A match. He's back in business. So he's made 109 overnight, facing Prasid Krishna's opening that attack for India. Right? So we're not dealing with the rest of the names who are bowling in this match so far aren't what I would call bowlers that have featured prominently for India in Test cricket, but Prasid has. And well, look, Konstas has rattled off 100. He made one for New South Wales. Was it a warm-up game a couple of weeks ago? I think it was a squad game. So that's 2 times that Konstas has made 100 very recently. That's not nothing. Campbell Kellaway, 88, another player who we're going to chuck on that whiteboard. Brad Hope, Campbell Kellaway.
Duncan Kellaway.
Duncan Kellaway.
They might all play.
But isn't this is that Kellaway family? That's Andrew and Duncan.
I think so, yeah. I think it's a branch.
I'm not sure.
Not a direct, but like a nephew or a cousin or something. Cousin's kid.
And the Buddha, Nathan McSweeney, who's captaining Australia A, missed out at 4, made 1. Ollie Peake, he missed out 2 today. Ollie Peake missed out. Cooper Connolly got 70. So Liam Scott got 47. Fair play,
Liam Scott's the Australia A specialist these days.
He's a bit of a smoky.
He just loves playing for Australia A. He loves making runs for Australia A.
It's a good team. Xavier Bartlett, Fergus O'Neill, Corey Rocacholi, Todd Murphy, Josh, Ryan Philippi batting now. So
cruel intentions.
We'll keep an eye on that. They've done well on day one, 337 for 5, but they're a considerably better team than the one that Shreyas Iyer is leading, at least in this first match. They're bringing in Mohammad Siraj for second.
Playing next.
And Kale Rahul,
how many overs he'll bowl. But my other question is, how is there no vision? I've been trying to find Slam and Sammy Konstas' 100 all day.
Nothing.
Not a ball.
No stream.
Not a picture.
So they don't even have the Crick Info
What's going on?
Scoring. So you're getting update. Like in some games that are really off Broadway, you only get the updates on Crick Info, and then the scores come later. That's what I was following it this morning on. We've got Sky here this week doing the Surrey game, and I was trying to provide some context around Konstas. I'm like, hang on, the scorecard's not updated in 45 minutes. So it's a long way from
nobody
Kansas.
Got the iPhone out and like popped a live stream on YouTube or something.
A live link from Lucknow. Maybe they could do, given every single match on this trip's being played at Lucknow, somebody sort it out. Get my mate Jake over there when he's finished with the county championship. Jake will stream it. I know plenty of people. What about Harry Tector's old man? He'll stream it. He runs all the
I want to know what's going on. Sam Konstas hit 3 sixes. Where were they? Where'd they go? How'd he hit them? Like, there's no information. This is an outrage.
Last bit before we sort of drift towards our first break. Kane Williamson is not playing in. So I mentioned Maxi before. He's playing in the one days. Then he'll play a couple of games and move off to that one day series. I don't know. He wants to. He's Victorian contracted. Just probably wants to give them a hand.
He also said he didn't want to play 50 over cricket because it was too hard on his body.
Wants to sing the song.
50 overs
hearts to hearts and hands to hands. Beneath the blue and white we stand. We shout, God bless our native land, Victoria, Victoria. It's a great song. It's a catchy end, joining the chorus. He's watched North play during the season. He's like, wouldn't mind getting back in the huddle singing, joining the chorus.
Heaps of fun.
Enjoy yourself today.
Oh.
Just for recreation's sake to pass the time away. That's why Maxi's playing for the Vicks this week.
It'll be the shittest line in any club song, I reckon.
I always liked that.
Top 5 anyway.
Did you hear State of Origin's coming back next year on Valentine's Day, Winnie's birthday?
Power to rule. It's up there.
So WA are hosting Victoria on Valentine's Day at the casino. I'm quite fired up about that. It's quite cool. Anyway, last thing. So Kane Williamson's not going to play in those white ball games against Australia.
That was my favourite bit of the of editing the book when you went. did Laurie Nash really kick 18 goals for Victoria? And I'm like, yes, Laurie Nash kicked 18 goals. You're like, Laurie Nash was a centre-half back. And I'm like, yes, he was. He kicked 18 goals for Victoria.
He kicked a Fred Fanning worth of goals against South Australia, which just bewildered me.
You never hear mentioned.
No. And I was there for Dunstall 17 and all these other all these other landmarks popping up on the screen. They should have popped up Laurie Nash in the list.
Yep.
So Kane's not playing. How's this? He's on a casual contract, which means that by consent, he can skip whatever the fuck he wants to skip. Kane, he's over here still, I think. His wife's English. He's over here right now, I'm pretty sure, or on a holiday after his 100 commitments on the way. So he's like, and I don't mind it, by the way, he's going to play the T20 World Cup. He's like, I'm not going to be available to come to your party on Saturday night. I have another commitment. I don't need to explain what that commitment is, but you can pick someone else. And look, who cares? Ultimately, who cares? But interesting that he has that flexibility.
I can't help you move on the weekend, but I will be there for the trip to Thailand in February. When the fun stuff's on, I'll be there. It strikes me as this casual relationship is very sort of. It's Chapel Rowan casual, as in one part of the arrangement says it's casual and the other part wishes that it wasn't. It's very, it's those things where people go, oh, we've decided to open our relationship, but actually only one half of the couple is getting any attention and the other one's sitting around getting stroppy. The side with no attention is New Zealand cricket, who are going, God, I wish he'd show up. I wish he'd call. I wish he'd at least text, tell us what's going on. Kane is out on the town. Yeah,
Kane's on the pool. And a third wicket here at the Oval, by the way. Your favourite cricketer, Joe Clark's just been knocked over by Matt Fisher, who I fucking love. Matt Fisher.
What a shame. What a sad result. Any day that Joe Clark fails to make any runs, real tragedy. Really write that down in my grief book.
I thought you'd like that. So, yes, where was I? I've forgotten where I am. It's been that kind of episode. You know what? That's the casual. No, we don't need to talk about Kane Williamson anymore. We've done enough of that for the time being, and I'm sure we will again soon. Our program is brought to you. Before we go to the break, I'll remind you our program is brought to you by Maurice Blackburn, who are the number one plaintiff law firm in Australia. Hey, Maurice Blackburn had a massive win recently. Well, it was the TWU. The TWU had a big win over Qantas.
128 points over Qantas.
Yeah, they beat them. They put a gap in them. So a bit of a crossover here between employment law and class actions, with Qantas being fined a record $90 million for illegally firing 1,820 baggage handlers and other ground staff in 2020. So one of Maurice Blackburn's principal lawyers represented the TWU in court. So that's the Transport Workers Union. And yes, they described Qantas as the country's fiercest legal opponent. And then, yes, that $90 million penalty, which was the resolution of the legal finding of the case, the judgment, was the largest in Australian corporate history. So, and it was described by one reporter as the darkest day in Qantas's 105-year history. So, again, this is just a reminder of the broader work that Maurice Blackburn do. We've said before that the class actions they involve themselves in for all sorts of different, on behalf of so many different working Australians. And in this case, those who were illegally fired back in 2020, those baggage handlers and ground staff, and that massive corporate fine that was handed down. So, yeah, it's just another nod to the great work that Maurice Blackburn do on behalf of hardworking Australian people, and why we're so proud that they are our principal partner on the podcast. Have been last season, this season 18, next season 19, and that's true. They're going to be with us all the way through the Ashes. And at the moment, again, if you want to get involved in our Ashes coverage, it's going to be bigger than the Beatles, to quote the 12th Man's Ian Chappell many years ago. Biggest hits is the Beatles. Adam at finalwordcricket.com. Hit me up, and we can do some business together. We can start a lovely relationship that is more committed than Kane Williamson and New Zealand cricket. On that note, let's go to a break. Back in a moment with a massive, bulky England segment.
It is the final word. It is still season 18, and it is once again episode 32. The second time we've done episode 32 in 8 days. County Championship, all to play for. It is happening at the Oval. So just patch me in. I will tell you what I know. It's that Surrey are on top of the table by not that many points. The points thing is always confusing because of bonus points and whatnot, but not a lot ahead of Notts, who are behind them by not that much. So if Notts win here, they will go ahead, and then there's one more round to play.
So a shortcoming of the comp as it is, with near enough. With 10 teams in Division 1, oftentimes you'll only play one team. Sorry, there's a few teams you'll only play once. There's not an elegant draw with 14 games. There is in Division 2, but not Division 1. So it's the first time they've played Notts this year.
Okay.
Happens to be the second last round. And they are first and second coming in. I'm looking at the bonus points part of the board here. They've both collected all 3 of their bowling points. So there's 1 point the difference going into the second half of this game, which I mentioned before. Notts had a 58-run first innings lead, but they are currently 41 for 3. So that this game's well and truly in balance at the moment, sort of deep into day 2. It's got to rain tomorrow.
3 for
effectively. 90. It's got to rain tomorrow, which is another factor to consider. Surrey were scuppered by rain last week, day 3 tomorrow. So we're a long way advanced in the game, but still, there's already been 23 wickets in a day that's got about halfway to run. But this happened last week. There were lots of wickets on days 1 and 2 here when Warwickshire were visiting. And Surrey were in a pretty strong position to push home the advantage. They were going to be, I think they were, by the time the rain came eventually, they needed 10 wickets and Warwickshire needed about 300 runs, and they shook hands eventually because it was raining and so on. But so they didn't quite have enough time last week. And Worcestershire lost to Notts, a low-scoring game. They did have enough time to win there, which is why the margin narrowed so much. Warwickshire and Somerset feasibly could win the comp if they both won their last 2 games and Surrey and Notts draw. However, yesterday, how about this? Samo reckons maybe for the first time ever, 8 games around the country, not a single ball bowled, and here we got the full 96 overs in. It's like the cricket gods said, this game must go on. This game must be played to its fullest, and it gave us sort of a biodome, Paulie Shaw, Kylie Minogue style thing going on around South London. A gap.
The eye of the storm.
Eye of the storm, you've got it. So we got all the playing yesterday. That's Divi 1, so all to play for here. Divi 2, the Leicestershire Foxes are going up. They're
going up.
There's no way they can knock
last
up.
Week even.
Yeah, just confirming.
52 points in the clear.
Put a gap
from
in them.
third spot. They did put a gap in them. Can I tell you, go you good thing, put a gap in them. You will know what I mean if I say that.
Indeed, I do.
The song that was on the end of at the end of Roy and HG's Run of the Dream in 2000. I was working on an essay recently for another project that was about music and sport, and I probably spent too much time discussing Go You Good Thing. Put a gap
go
in them.
You good thing,
good
go
thing,
and go
going
hard.
hard.
Go you good thing, hard. Go you good
and
thing.
And it occurred to me,
terrific.
And this thing that I've wondered at various points over the years, that I've still never been able to find out who the singers were, because they're so like gloriously 90s in their presentation, their performance. Everything about them is like gloriously kitsch, right? They're like human Ken Doan paintings, ads. They're remarkable. I don't know where they were found, but I've been trying to track them down because I want to identify these people, and then I want to find out if I can interview them for no other reason except that I would find it really interesting. So
on the Final Word Cricket podcast, hopefully.
So if you know who they are, let me know. But also,
didn't they perform on I feel like on the Saturday night, second week of the Olympic Games? So 25 years ago at the moment,
though. They were
pre-recorded. But the very end. But don't you remember? This is pushing me here, but it'll be a quarter of a century next week.
Yes.
Today's 25 years. Today, 16th of September, is 25 years since we smashed them like guitars.
Oh.
Hall and Thorpe, right. Thorpe and Hall. Thorpe goes in. Thorpe's won it. And the smash and the guitars
Michael
on the podium. Michael Klim and Chris Feidler, Ashley Callis. Tom Decent and I, whenever we room together on tour, which is most tours these days, we just spend hour after hour watching Australians win gold medals from Sydney. It's good times. Anyway, I reckon on that last night when the Opals didn't win the gold medal, lost gold, won silver. I'm falling into a classic Australian trope. You don't win silver, you lose gold. When they didn't win the gold medal game, I reckon that night they had like Lauren Jackson in the studio, and I reckon they got those singers in to sing it.
No,
If that's
what happened? what happened is it was a pre-recorded appearance that had been played previously. The competition, this is my specialty, don't doubt that. Hearts of Gold was the name of the competition. They had a bunch of different songs sort of every night for a while. Go You Good Thing was one of them, and then they had the votes, and then it won. And on the last night, they played the pre-record with the superimposed people, but they had a live choir in the background, and they had John Farnham as the live in-studio singer. So the original singers were not live in studio,
Right.
but a choir was.
Farnsey.
And Farnsey was leading that chorus, and he was jumping around.
Yeah.
He just spent 10 minutes in the toilet cubicle with Sam Newman. He was going absolutely nuts and really giving it the big ones, and hip thrusts and swivels, and he's running around all over the stage. He was having the time of his life, John Farnham.
Fuck, imagine a night out with Johnny Farnham.
Mm-hmm.
That would be that's bucket list stuff. A night out with John Farnham. Can someone facilitate that? We went to the same high school, Lindale High School. Surely there's a way.
Make it a prize at a fundraiser or something like that.
Oh yeah,
we'll bid. Yeah, so he's the live in studio presence, but the pre-recorded singers are not. So I've been in correspondence with a range of people off like comment threads and things on the internet who are. So I'm talking to someone who went to the conservatory in Queensland with one of those singers in the 90s, who's to try to see if I can track down a name, to try to see if I can get in touch. So that's an exciting sub-project, which is Jeff tracks down the singers from Go You Good Thing.
I support
because
it.
nobody remembers what their names are, and they're not credited anyway.
Crude segue. Speaking of projects, Leicester's project, having been promoted, is to now finish. I don't think they can not win the. I think they're in a position where they're clear enough that even if they didn't, they could lose.
They could still lose. First
I know they can. They're 26 points clear. That's right.
They've got to lose both games.
Anyway, I digress.
And the annoying bit of this is
the annoying part of this is that to me, all the Australian domestic players have been recalled to start playing in the One Day Cup that we spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
Isn't it a bloody shame that Peter Hanscom, who's been running the show there at Leicester for 3 seasons, he laid the foundation to this promotion. He got them, I reckon, last year to a point where they were one of the hardest teams in the country to beat. They didn't win a lot of games, but they didn't lose many games either. He made Grace Road a bit of a fortress through his leadership. He should be able to enjoy the last fortnight of the season over here in the UK as the county captain. He's an elder statesman these days of Victorian cricket. He's given so much service to Victorian and indeed Australian cricket. He should be allowed to start the domestic season a couple of weeks late. This seems excessive to me. And it's not just Hanscom. There are others. I mentioned Marcus Harris before. But, I appreciate that seasons overlap and this is an imperfect thing. And that happens in domestic T20 tournaments all the time where players who've taken part in the group stage can't be there for the elimination stages or whatever. But this seemed like an easy win to me. Let the Aussies have been
fundamentally
what the county championship related to the
like the T20 stuff. There's less emotional investment. Like if you've put in for a first class campaign to try to get a team promoted, there's so much more effort, more time, more days on the field, all the rest of it, as opposed
it's a
to
6-month campaign.
You played 6 games in the group stage of the T20s, and
Well, we're talking about a 6-month effort, which goes back a bit further when you consider the preseason. I know we wouldn't get into much of that, but the club have done together, and he's the club captain, and that's a nice thing. I like that we've gone. It's a bit of a throwback, an overseas full-time county captain, and Hanscom's made that commitment and had that undertaking for a number of years. And I feel like he deserves to be the guy that holds up the trophy on the final day. Small thing, but it's a thing. He's been replaced by another Australian who hasn't got commitments in Australia because he never really got the chance to excel as a Shield cricketer, only playing once for Victoria. But the upshot of all of that is that, what do we used to call him? Reality TV superstar Ian Holland, who moved over to Leicestershire from Hampshire, and he's done a great effort. He will be wearing the captain's armband for the last couple of rounds, and provided they keep the show on the road,
isn't he? Are they middle of a game?
They sure are. And provided they do enough to retain their lead, they will be going up as champions to Division 1 for the first time. And I say all of that because we don't really know what Division 1's going to look like next year. I mean, there's a lot going on right now. Richard Thompson has done a bunch of media, lots of news points from it. But one I will say, just to link it back to county cricket, is that it feels like they're voting on this prospective 13-game season this week. I was on commentary with Mike Atherton yesterday, and we were discussing this, and his information is that maybe up to 11 county chairs will vote for that model. But the point is, it's a very tight run thing. So even though Surrey is stridently against it, Surrey's chairman, Ollie Slipper, did an interview with Daniel Norcross last week on our stream and spoke about the retention of the 14-game season, that their players, their members all want to stay at 14 games. There's enough, maybe enough of a groundswell to at least cut one game off. To my way of thinking, it's a lot of effort to go through to basically take one game off and completely change the way the county championship looks. Often, as it can often be with like incremental change, it can be done in quite weird ways. So I guess I'll reserve judgment fully until we know exactly what's going to happen to the championship in 2026.
It would mean one fewer game that Peter Hanscom could miss at the end of the season, I suppose. I guess he was there. He would have at least been there when they knew that they were going up. Like that, the end of the third last game, they would have known. So
and there was
they could have celebrated then.
They did. There were some lovely scenes in the dressing room that were cut up for socials. By the way, 2 more wickets here, 53 for 5. This game could end today. This is happening very, very quickly. And Matt Fisher, good boy, just picked up another one then. I mentioned Richard Thompson. There was quite a bit of reporting out of this.
Let's talk Richard Thompson.
Yeah, you've been into this as well. So this is schedule stuff that. So he's talking about the schedule being a nightmare.
For the international players, fundamentally, the way they went this year, all the tests straight into the 100, straight out into the one-day series, everybody's cooked. He's admitting that it's too much. You know, he's the boss, he's in charge, but he's saying, yeah, we botched it basically, but they're stuck with botching it for another year because they've got everything for next year already locked in, and it'll be a further season before they can actually try to change anything schedule-wise. So I think all they can do is try to change things in terms of how they approach selection, which means leaning more on that squad of England players model rather than it has to be the 5 or 6 players that people might have heard of who aren't huge cricket fans.
And I guess that's what they've done to an extent with the trip over in Ireland this week. So let's just zoom out here. So September internationals for men, do they ever work over here? Acknowledging that next year there's actually Test cricket in September, and that's a whole different thing. But one-day series or T20 series, where you were over here for that Australia series last year, right? Like, did that work? Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess it makes them a lot of money.
I think it worked locally. They didn't. I mean, nobody paid any attention to it in Australia. It's immediately forgotten. You know, I feel like. It's that like Mandela effect thing, the timeline with the stuff in it that doesn't actually exist. It's a bit like that. You know, I was at those games and I remember them and I know they happened, but nobody else does. In Australia, at least. But in England, they all sold out. Every single one was a sellout wherever they went.
This year too. I was at that Lord's game the other week and there was a lot of people there. So maybe there's an argument
out and they had fun and they enjoyed themselves. So I don't see any harm in it, particularly for people who didn't bother to go.
It just adds to that. Maybe it's the T20 piece to this because, like, genuinely, nobody in England, and I mean, like, even the players themselves, knew that England were playing on Friday night till they were 50 for none from 3 overs. Like, I think even the most battle-hardened cricket fans did not know there was a T20 going on, and that was 2 nights after the 50-ball debacle that Harry Brook spoke disparagingly of in a game that was just rain-affected over in Cardiff, and then the third game, which was washed out entirely at Trent Bridge on Sunday. So there was a world record spliced in there. I say they were 100 for none off 3 or whatever. They ended up getting 304 for 2 with Phil Salt batting through the innings for 141 not out from 60 balls. So it wasn't like without its interest, but
stuff happened.
But like I say, I just don't feel like maybe it's a bubble thing, maybe because we're so ensconced within cricket that we miss stuff, but maybe the women should be using this time of year. I've done quite a bit of women's international cricket in September where they get a bit more clear air at the end of a season. Perhaps that's the right model. I'm not sure.
Look, stuff happened and no one cared. That could be how you define all T20 cricket or all T20 international cricket, particularly. You know, it happened. It's an exhibition game. T20 international is fundamentally an exhibition game unless it's a World Cup. So that's okay. You're allowed to have exhibitions. You're allowed to. How many meaningless football matches are there? Or how many meaningless, fucking Inter Milan going to, I don't know, Florida to play Miami or whatever the hell those preseason tours. There's so much meaningless sport, which is just exhibition sport, international friendlies in football. Fine. All of it's fine. I think all of it's okay to happen. It's just whether you're going to push your best players to play in it, which they probably don't need to do, because you can have more of a flexible approach to who's going to be the white ball, who's going to be playing in the domestic white ball games. They've always gone with a different squad, like not disparagingly, but a second tier squad for sending teams to Ireland, because they don't rate Ireland and they don't really care about playing Ireland, and they're fulfilling an obligation. But I still think it's better than not doing it. It's better than not going. It's the model that India have used really well at times, where they'll have a team playing somewhere, even if it's players who wouldn't get into the top 20 if that absolute best team were picked. So that's okay. That part of it's fine. The weather part you can't do anything about. It's horrible luck. I think that Nottingham game was the one that was supposed to be on the BBC again. So the Manchester T20 against Australia was the one that was allocated to be on free-to-air TV on the BBC, and that was a complete washout, didn't get a ball. And then they got the Trent Bridge game this last week, which was also a complete washout. So trying to get the games onto free-to-air has not worked. It's just too high risk to only have one game allocated per season when the weather is what it is in England.
Yeah, it's that incrementalism, isn't it? Right. Yeah, we'll try and get cricket back on free-to-air television by putting some 100 games, which I understand the logic to it, but how many kids are queuing up to watch terrestrial television on BBC Two? I reckon that most 14-year-olds have probably never watched BBC Two live unless it's the FA Cup final or whatever. Probably a bad example. So there's that, and then T20Is that don't have the mystique or the grandeur. Put a test match on in the middle of summer, like Ali Martin's argued in The Guardian. Different story. But I understand that's complex with broadcast rights. Yeah, you mentioned that the Ireland trip, they've got their two-tier Kia style side going out there playing, starting tomorrow, I think it is, 3 matches at Malahide. We do have final word representation out there. Matt Heavy Roller and Nathan Joey Johns are there, and we'll send me a dispatch later in the week, and we will put it in the podcast next week. That was where I landed on that. I do want to know what happens there. I am not going to watch these games. You two, very capable young men, are there covering it. You can send us a 10-minute voice note when it's over, and we will pop it in the podcast next week, and that'll be fun. That'll be the extent of our coverage. Yeah, you tell me what happened, and we will send that to our audience, and then they can find out what happened as well. We will care a lot more when England are playing in Australia, in Perth, on the 21st of November. And a man on that team sheet, according to Brendon McCullum, who's been on Media Street as well, is Shoaib Bashir. He's tried to shut down all speculation. Now, this was really interesting. Press conference. So all the usual suspects were there. He confirmed Bashir as their frontline spinner, but he fell short of confirming that Ollie Pope's going to be 100% in the team. Indeed, he got a question about the vice-captaincy and said that they have to work on that one as well. And then he was asked about a new vice-captain for the Ashes. We will chat about that over the next coming days as we finalise our Ashes squad. So he's trying to say, on one hand, they kind of know their squad. So, yeah, it's going to be a very easy process picking our Ashes squad. And then he's saying, well, we've got a conversation around the vice-captaincy, which, of course, has been Pope. He's stood in for Stokes on 5 separate occasions. So that kind of implies that Harry Brook, who's the white ball captain, could inherit the Test vice-captaincy. Therefore, if Stokes was unavailable through injury, at least at the start of the series, whether Harry Brook might be the captain at Perth, that's quite a big deal. When you consider the type of pressure that's heaped on the shoulders of a visiting Ashes captain, that would be a significant move, going to a new acting captain in that scenario.
Well, there's a bit going on here because Jacob Bethel's also the white ball captain this week. So they've clearly tagged him as someone they're advancing. Through the English Test summer, they didn't pick Bethel. They went for Pope at 3 and backed him and made it clear that he was their first pick player. These comments just serve to destabilise all of that. Surely this just undermines Pope by being wishy-washy about who's going to be vice-captain, just because Harry Brook's captained some one-dayers, where his contribution to captaining the one-dayers was the line about, I don't want to have team meetings and I never want to talk to anyone about the game. I mean,
does it mean that Pope's a lock?
This is what I'm asking.
Does it mean that there's a possibility?
Yes.
They've actually made a call. Pope got out cheaply here today, and he was furious. In the middle of a collapse of 5 for 28 at the time, he was the last in the sequence. Remember how much rides on this game. He second slip, classic Ollie Pope dismissal, and that's okay. Some players get caught in the cordon a lot, but it didn't look good in context given where they were in the game that he was playing that shot. Thumped his bat, threw his bat in the air. He was like ropeable. And I wonder whether, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I wonder whether maybe he is feeling the pinch selection-wise when it's pretty obvious that they like Bethel. And if they want to find room at the end for Bethel, logic would suggest that there's only really one spot it could be, and it would be Ollie Pope. So it's a lot to ask of. It's a lot. I think Pope would be in the squad anyway as even the reserve keeper, right? Which sounds like a weird thing to say, but I don't see a world where Pope doesn't go. But is Pope playing the first test? I think that's an open question.
This is the thing. They have to have him because they don't have wicket-keeping backup otherwise. But they've spent the summer backing him as first drop, and then this undermines that position. So this makes it more difficult for him. I don't understand how this helps your player if you're planning on picking him. And I don't really understand sort of leading, kind of trailing this if you're planning on leaving him out.
We had a bit of fun in the lunchroom yesterday. I think Vish is doing a project for Cricinfo where they're picking their fifth test team for England now, like they're foreshadowing crystal balling what the fifth test team might look like. And we were mucking around saying like Jamie Overson will be in there and returning. Ollie Pope will be keeper. Bethel will be captain, all the rest of it.
Yep. Dan Worrell debut.
Yeah, you get the picture. Like there's some, you can see a world where, I don't know, they might win 5-0. Who knows? It's a long way to go. But also I could see a world where we're doing a press conference at the MCG on the 24th of December with England in dire straits and talking about, having the right group for moving forward for the next generation. I can see that too. I'd hate it if it were the case, but I can see it.
If Stokes is fragile as well, and Brooks, I don't understand why you would want to put that job onto Harry Brook, who is your singular talent, your new generation great talent. He's the linchpin. Like, yes, Root will be important, but Harry Brook is the way that England could win in Australia. Like he's had that ridiculous ability to put everything aside, to not worry about context, to seemingly just not think about things too much and to just go out there and play outrageous innings. He's the one who I think could go to Australia and make all the difference. I wouldn't be toying with that by making him captain as well. Yeah. But
nor would I.
Break before we go to segment 3.
We do. I'd say nor do I. I agree with you, but he's looked fairly unflappable when he's been a leader. So I sort of see they might temperamentally think he might be okay.
It's a lot more to think about than doing a few one-dayers against Australia in September that no one gives a shit about. Like there's a lot more to think about trying to captain for 5 tests in the heat in the middle of the summer.
Yeah,
just
and all the scrutiny.
Don't mess with your potential key bat. It just seems nuts.
Okay, back in a moment for the final segment of The Final Word. This is the Final Word Cricket Podcast. Adam Collins and Jeff Lemon with you. It is brought to you in conjunction with New Brew, the Think Drink. We've had a great run with New Brew through the last few months. We've really enjoyed working with them. Couple of weeks left. We've been until the end of the run, that is, because the season will end and things will change as they tend to do with these things. The combination pack that they've had that they first revealed at Wormsley, which was such a marvellous Final Word day. We actually got a Final Word game this Friday, the 19th. I think that's on our social media feeds now. We'll be wearing our New Brew Final Word shirts proudly in the field and batting too. We're not going to change shirts just to field. We will wear them throughout the game. It's only a T20. Weird. It would be weird. But we're playing ODB, my other team, and it will be a great occasion. So come down, 4 p.m. start. Who knows? I'm speaking aloud, thinking aloud. I might bring a whole bunch of New Brew sachets, which you can enjoy, and then you can buy the combination pack, which is like a starter thing, which is the drink that is the hero products. There are a whole bunch of different flavors, the pineapple, the berry, the strawberry lemonade. We've gone through them many times before, but this gives you a variety of them, and it means that you can have 10 sachets for a heavily reduced price, $19.95 on the website in the GBP. That's a very healthy 15% discount as well because you're a Final Word person at Newbrew, NOOBRU.com/TFU, and then you got yourself a start and you can be part of what we're doing here with Newbrew on the Final Word, which has been great fun, and we've loved working with them, and hopefully we'll continue working with them for a long time into the future, Jeff.
And we'll always remember Cherry Surge.
Cherry Surge.
Character who I want to write into a comic book at some stage. What is Cherry Surge up to this week? Yeah, it's good to be able to try everything out and do it at a discount. So check that out. What is left in our show today? We've talked about England in a national team sense, domestically, a bit of fun in the blast with finals day. Chris Lynn, first ever century made on finals day. That was in the semi-final. He was playing for Hampshire. He hit 5 sixes in an over in the process of passing the ton, and then aiming for the 6th, was given out LBW, then had that overturned. So was able to continue, but didn't get his 6 sixes. Poor Lloyd Pope, the leg spinner, the Australian leg spinner, was the bowler in that instance, and he just didn't know what to do, Lloyd Pope. He kept trying to hang them wider and wider outside off stump And the wider he went outside off stump, the more Chris Lynn just kept going over and belting them over the leg side. Everything went over deep mid-wicket. Everything. Didn't matter what Lloyd Pope bowled. Slow, loop, dart, wrong end, leg break, doesn't matter. And he was just trying to get out of the swinging arc, but everything went leg side.
Yeah, look, my only thinking there is that, isn't it sad that Chris Lynn only played 22 internationals? Like, a guy, he's nearly played 300 T20s in all competitions. Better part of 9,000 runs. He strikes at 144, 6 centuries, 56 other scores above 50, and an average of 33. I mean, his numbers stack up. I remember, I think it was Maxi at one point said that Chris Lynn's the best ever BBL player, and that's a reasonable argument to mount. That somehow, for all of that, he's never really been properly utilised as an international. It's been a long time since he's played for Australia. I'm not mounting the argument that they launch a recall
Ashes.
for a 35-year-old, but
Lynn's Ashes.
Yeah, Ashes, yeah, Chris Lynn's Ashes. But it does seem to me that somewhere along the line they missed a trick there with Chris Lynn, and he takes every opportunity to remind people that he's still extremely capable, and that T20 finals day was an instance or an example of that. And it was a final that went all the way to the end too, Jeff. It was another, they've had 2 or 3 great finals days in a row, and Somerset get the job done for, I think it's the second time in 3 years, is it? Something like that?
Yeah, another Chapel Rowan reference. They get the job done. Somerset. So Hampshire, basically Chris Lynn finished off his innings and then came back, basically straight back out and batted again, but was out relatively cheaply in the final. So Somerset won that. Will Smeed, or was a satisfying name to say, Smeed, 94 off 58. Big chase. They needed 195 to win, but they got them. So Somerset, a trophy down on the southern coast. I always have to be very careful how I describe things because people get very annoyed in England where you can't call that the south coast, that's the southeast or something.
Yeah, I think if
then
you
called
like, Somerset,
that's not England, or that's in Wales, and you're like, whatever, all right? The rest of us don't spend all our time poring over your maps, I'm sorry to say. But it's near the water and it's at the bottom, so I'm going to call that south coast.
Southwest would be the more accurate compass depiction, but I hear what you are saying, and yes, Somerset, who are going to end up finishing 3rd or 4th probably again in the championship, because they'll need to do too much because this game keeps rattling along, so this won't be a draw. One team will win, which will mean that Warwickshire and Somerset are fighting for the 3rd podium spot in all probability, but they have been successful, far more successful in winning stuff in white ball cricket. Down the pyramid, just quickly, Connor Haddo, who has been part of the final word a couple of times this year on social media, on our Instagram channel, with the work he did with me before the season on strength and conditioning to spin the ball more, and then the session that Tubes and I did with him and the day in the life I did with him recently. Playing for Bucks in the minor counties final, he picked up 16 wickets. He picked up a 7-fer, then a 9-fer, a 7-fer, then a 9-fer. It's the most wickets ever in a minor counties final. The one before that was Jack Leach, took 13 back in 2013.
And Narendra Hawani. He's got
16 wickets for Bucks. So, and nod to a man who's been on the final word before as well, Rich Hudson, a dear friend of mine who is the MD at Bucks Cricket. But yeah, Connor, he's 25 years of age.
The maitre d', the table.
Something like that. Managing director.
Managing director. Okay.
Yeah, but Rich has done great work, both at Northampton for years now at Bucks Cricket. He runs the show there. But yeah, the minor counties final, so Bucks win that. But I just want to say about Connor, 25 years old, he had his brief time in county ranks at Northampton as like a 19-year-old, then had a really bad injury with his shoulder, and he's turned himself into the best spinner, surely, who's not playing county cricket at the moment. Buff, give him a call. He played a couple of twos games for Northampton this year. Buff, actually, I'll go one step further than that. Baz, give him a call. Get Connor to Australia. Leave Bashir at home.
Yeah.
Connor Haddo's Ashes. Connor Haddo's Ashes.
When he dismissed Chris Lynn in the crucial 5th test at Sydney.
He's in my 5th test team.
9 wickets down, 4 runs to get. He draws the edge from Lynn.
A tall left armour who rags it. They could do worse.
Curtis Patterson left distraught, captaining by that point. Curtis Patterson.
Last thing on England club cricket, just Watsonian went up in Scotland. I know that you and I were following that pretty closely the other week. So they won their playoff. Watsonian are back to the Prem. We only mentioned that because we play a final word game against Watsonian each year. Yes. They had to do something quite remarkable. They took 10 for 47 to win the game and make sure that they are going up to the Scottish Prem next year. So well done, Watsonian. Can't wait to play them again in 2026. 6, Jeff. We're not far from finishing the show.
No?
Just interesting news point from the ICC during the week that every single umpire and match referee at the Women's World Cup will be a woman. Just wanted to say, like, we whack administrators all the time. It's a bit like when I feel duty bound when I have a good experience at an airport to say something good about it. Like, the security here was really well done. You know, like this, for all of the grief that we give, especially ICC, so much work has gone in behind the scenes to get to this point where it isn't just a story about, you know, Claire Polisak or Jackie Williams or Sue Redfern, like a few of the higher profile women. They've got 14 umpires who have reached a standard to officiate in the World Cup. You throw on top Lauren Ugenberg and Kim Cotton, who are doing their second World Cup, and you've got 14 umpires, 9 countries, 4 match referees. Chandra Fritz, who I know a little bit from South Africa, she was fast-tracked and mentored very closely, and all that work's gone on behind the scenes to make this type of thing possible. We talk about equality in the game for women to the extent that it's possible with the financial models that are well and truly in place. Well, when it comes to match officials, exactly the same philosophy should be at place. Congratulations to the 18 match officials who have been given the nod for the World Cup that starts on the 30th of September, which we will cover every single day of on the Final Word Daily.
Well, it's been a build. It's been a build of having the ranks full enough with umpires who've got the match time and who've been able to do enough high profile cricket to build the confidence and to build the CV that there are. Like it's been such a lopsided industry in terms of gender participation. So I think that the next steps, it's this odd sort of loop one way and then the other. That you want to have this World Cup where all of the umpires are women because you want to show how many umpires have come along and developed, and you eventually want to work it back to a point where the umpires across any World Cup are a mix of any gender identity, because who cares? You want to have a lot more women umpiring in men's cricket. You want to have, and then you want it to not matter to not need to find more opportunities for female umpires in women's cricket specifically, because why? In the end, why does it need to be that way once we've got participation broadly enough across any group?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So this is the ground floor being laid, and they've done that by getting internationals in bilaterals into lots of umpires who were operating at levels below. And yeah, this is the yield, right? You get to a point where you can have an announcement like this that's actually meaningful. Australia are getting the rails run prep. They're already in India playing a 3-game one-day series. As always, it's Australia and England getting the perfect prep for World Cups wherever they are played. India and Australia have got 3 one-days. The first Australia won by 8 wickets. So we're chasing 282 for victory. Phoebe Litchfield, who will be
big chase,
crucial to that.
There aren't a lot of bigger chases than that in women's 50 over cricket.
Point. So Phoebe Litchfield made 88, and Megan Shute played her 100th one-dayer and took 2 for 45 for Australia. So well done to friend of the show, Megan Shute, who has been on the show years ago now, but someone who we have a great affection for. So that was a game that was played. I can't remember where they played that actually, but they've got 3 one-dayers, and then we're into the World Cup a week or so after that. And just lastly, Jeff, on global tournaments, credit to James Coyne, who got this yarn during the week for the cricketer. There's some lobbying going on at ICC level to get rid of the men's under-19s 50 over World Cup and turn it into a T20 tournament. Give me a spell. As James said in his piece, are they thinking about cricket at all with this? Like, it just kind of undermines the 50 over format yet further, that a tournament that's always been played as a 50 over comp would be reduced to T20 because I suppose the commercial realities of wanting to play more. Well, I think it's probably more to do with battle hardening younger players for the IPL. Yeah, we're selling it, but also just getting younger players ready to play in franchise land, because we know that, as you said before, that T20 eyes outside of World Cups are glorified exhibition games. So what's this really doing? It's nurturing players to prepare them for and not just the IPL, but the IPL and all of its various extended arms to different parts of the world where there's IPL ownership.
Surely there is so much more than enough T20 cricket to prepare players for T20 cricket. You see this, the way that these newer generations, particularly in India, are discussed, where they come in and they play Tamil Nadu Premier League, like we were talking about recently. They play these leagues which have big crowds and which are on television and which are already high pressure sort of environments. Then they go into an IPL system and they're playing those games. And we've talked with a level of admiration about how some of these players are able to move up to international level and not flinch at it because they've already gone through cricket that's equally intense in terms of the crowd response and the attention that it's getting. So I don't think you need an extra opportunity. I think what it is as a one-day tournament is that the 50 over World Cup is still the main piece of silverware if you're talking white ball cricket. And yeah, that's kind of perverse that it is, because one-day cricket is so devalued everywhere else. But there's a reason that Kohli and Rowan are playing on to try to get to 2027. You know, that one-day World Cup still matters. That's your opportunity as a 19-year-old, as an emerging player, to play in something that feels like the real thing, that feels like what the senior ranks will be doing. And so playing something like an Australia A test, an A Tour test, an unofficial test, whatever they call it, is important in that way, of going out in the whites with the green cap or the blue cap or whatever country it is that you're turning out for. There's that pride there. But an under-19 World Cup, that's something that every player who's played at one has really strong memories of. That really matters to them, that it's a World Cup in the World Cup format. And I think you don't want to take away that opportunity for an emerging player to feel like they've been part of something special, which could be the thing that fuels them to keep pushing for the next 8, 10, 12, 15 years, whatever it might be, before they make it as an international player. Some players take a really long time to get there, but having been part of that is what drives them on.
Yep. Agree with everything you said there. It's a finishing school. It's a proper World Cup. It's a format that matters at a senior level still for World Cups, and any moves to undermine that would be bad for the game. So hopefully James reporting on this has the effect that it changes the decision, which occasionally journalism can do. Jeff, that ends our conversation today. I've got to go and do the next passage of Play on Comms after tea. But it's been a delight doing this as ever. If you want to get involved in The Final Word, patreon.com/The Final Word. Help us build to 1,000 patrons before the end of the year, which is the goal we've set. And along the way, we want to hit 947 or 974. 974. And I said this on Storytime last week, which was very good, if I do say so myself, that tell your friends. If you like what we're doing on The Final Word, do us a favor, grab the link in the show notes right now, in the episode description, grab the link and send it to some cricket mates. Send it to one cricket friend and tell them that we're the podcast that they should pay attention to in the build up to, the Ashes and everything else that's going to happen over a busy period of time, beginning with the Women's World Cup in just a fortnight from now, and all the other cricket that we cover on shows just like this. Jeff, that's me done. That's you done. This has been brought to you by Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm, and newbrew.com/TFW. We will catch you on Storytime in a few days' time. Ta-da!
Bye.